Hello, hello, my magical friends. Welcome to another Witchful Ways podcast episode. This is Annika with Witchful Ways. Today, what are we going to talk about? Well, I wanted to talk about personal power. I wanted to talk about belief, and I want to talk about warrior. And I think they all kind of blend together, and that's what we're going to talk about. So this month in my Sister Circle membership, we are uncovering and discovering and exploring our inner warrior goddesses, right? Like, what do you need to do to stand in your own personal power? And one of the things that we're working on, because as I record this, we are in the dark moon phase. So the dark moon phase, of course, is a wonderful time to be working on self. This is when we go very internal, right? We start analyzing and planning and looking in depth within ourselves. It's a time of rest, restoration, right? And also, of course, if you do cursing, hexing, binding, this is the time to be doing that as well. But we do a lot of internal work and planning and seeing what worked in the last cycle. And then as the witch's new moon comes about, which is going to be on the 13th and or 14th, depending on where you're at this month, that's when we take action. That's when we put what we've looking at and what we're planning to do and what we've decided that is good for us and our higher self, we put that into action. So the Sister Circle membership, we virtually gather every new moon, every full moon. And this month's new moon was about personal power, was about bringing our warrior out, right? Those warrior goddess energies out so that we have the self-esteem, we have the self-confidence, we have the understanding and knowledge that we have the ability. We seriously have the ability and the power to create whatever it is that we desire. We manifest our lives around us. Our reality is our own doing. So that's what we're working on. And there were some very interesting things that came up. And the first one that I want to talk about is your personal power. So your personal power is something that you give away. Other people can't take it from you. Your personal power, you give it away to them, right? So sometimes we have to do that. It's just part of living, and we all do that to a certain extent. It may be that you are being compliant in, some company meeting or some company's rules and procedures and policies, right? That's what I meant. Policies, like you're following the rules, right? That is kind of giving your personal power away to somebody else because you're doing something that somebody else says you need to adhere to. That gives a little bit of away. But that's okay because we're okay with giving that away, right? It's when we don't realize that we are giving our personal power away, or we don't recognize that it's personal power that we're giving away. So when somebody tells us that we can't do something and we accept that as truth, we have given them some of our personal power, right? They've allowed us to give it to them, and we've allowed ourselves to give it to them as well. So it happens in all these different ways. And one of the great things that can be done, and I always invite everyone to do during the new to witch's new moon, the dark moon to witch's new moon, is to cut off those personal powers. Once you give personal power away, you can't take it back. Right? You just can't. It's like sending water downstream and then trying to make it come back upstream to yourself. You can't. You've given it away. And that's okay. Because when you recognize and accept that it's a leak or a drainage point of your personal power, what you can do then is you stop the outflow, right? You shut down that tube that it's going out to. And that's how you regain your personal power. So kind of like cord cutting in a way, right? That kind of keeps your energy flowing when you're talking about cord cutting with energetic connections to places and people and certain events in your life. Same thing when it comes to your personal power. So you can't call it back to you, but you can definitely work with saying, okay, you know what? I am no longer going to allow my personal power to be given away to this person in this way or to this situation or circumstance, right? You stop it. You build the wall back up. You dam the flow of it, right? The river of it flowing away from you, and you regain it. And it's even more powerful then because you have recognized where the seepage was, and that's not going to occur anymore. So that means you get to keep more of your personal power. And that helps us not only in our physical and mental sense, right? Because when we're dealing with balances that go out like that, we have to deal with the stress and the anxiety that happens because of our situations and circumstances and our choices and decisions in our everyday lives as well as in our magical, right? So if we dam that up, then we stop the outpouring of worry and excessive focus of energy on that spot as well. And it all comes back to us. We get to keep that all. We get to keep the more powerful parts of us within us, our energy within us. And that then, of course, leads us to more self-worth, right? We see ourselves differently. We perceive ourselves differently because now we are more powerful. You have the strength. You have the intestinal fortitude. You have whatever it is that you needed to do, the courage to be able to go, you know what? Nope, I'm cutting off this personal power leakage. So then that brings us into our magical aspect of it, right? When you have that personal power, when you have that ability and belief in yourself, when you stop thinking that things have to be a certain way, because what that is somebody else telling you their experience and or sometimes telling you the quote unquote way to do it correctly, and you believing that your experience should be the same or that is the proper way to do it. And if you can't do it that way, or if it doesn't feel right to you when you do it that way, then it's not working and our personal power gets drained. We've given somebody else the power that allowed us to feel satisfied, complete, right? Like the witch that we are. So when we decide that, you know what, the best thing that you can do for yourself is make the decision that your way is the right way for you. I always say, I always say, you do you, witchy poo. And that is my tagline, right? That is my mantra for life. You do you, witchy poo. What feels good for you? What ingredients feel good for you? I always go back to, people say lavender is for tranquility and sleep, but if you hate the scent of lavender, you're not going to use that. It's not going to elicit the response. So somebody else telling you that this is what the experience is going to be, or what it should be, or look like, or feel like, or that this is the proper way to cast the spell or to meditate or, whatever it may be, and you accepting those as truth and then feeling bad because it's not working out that way for you, or you don't like to do it that way, or you're not seeing the results, and you're not seeing the results because you're not emotionally attached to the process. And that's part of it. So our personal power needs to stay within ourselves. For our physical and mental aspects of our physical daily mundane life, as well as for our magical abilities, because the last part of this that I want to talk about is when you have the personal power back to you, it brings belief back to your own magic, back to your own self. You can freaking do anything if you believe in yourself, right? To be able to achieve it or receive it or do it or whatever it is. Doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be trials and errors. Doesn't mean that you may have to tweak things along the way, but 100% that you can make anything that you want happen. That's extreme personal power, right? That is just living a flat out magical life. So I relate it to, and the reason I brought this up last is because I had somebody ask me earlier today in my Living a Magical Life Facebook group, that said a friend of mine or somebody that they had known had gotten a spirit board, a Ouija board from the 60s that used to belong to somebody else, and should they cleanse it? And my belief is that whenever you bring anything new that may have previous energy attached to it into your home, personal space, you should cleanse it. Even if you buy, a piece of furniture from a secondhand store, a rummage sale, or you even bring it in from, your neighbor's house, or your best friend's house, you never know what happens behind closed doors. Cleanse that shit, right? So I always recommend cleansing. So my response was absolutely. You can cleanse it through smoke cleansing, or you can sprinkle moon water over it that has had a protective stone setting in it, right? So like a protective moon water sprinkling of it. I said, or you can simply take a black tourmaline and a quartz crystal and put those in the corners. When I use a Ouija board, a spirit board, I have in each corner a crystal quartz, a black tourmaline, a moonstone, and a amethyst, because that centers, grounds, opens up intuition, and protects all in one. And that's what I sent over. And they sent back and said, great, thanks so much. But my next question is, should he or she, I don't remember, be worried about something attached to it? And this is what sparked this whole episode was, first off, 9 times out of 10, 99.9% of the time, there is never going to be an attachment to something like that, as a random something, right? Like that. Because even if a conjurer of some type or a practitioner of some type did put an attachment to something, there are certain provisions or certain things that are kind of triggers that would stop the attachment from occurring or release the, tied thing, whatever it may be, to the item, such as if it goes out of possession of the person that it was given to. Okay. So my major thing was, first off, that. Second, you are in the physical realm. You have the power in the physical realm, right? There is no other entity or being that is more powerful than you in the physical realm. So all that person would need to do was demand that anything that is attached to or around the board return to where it came, and it has to comply unless they've given it power. That would be giving it a piece of their personal power, right? Giving away personal power. And that is through doubt. That is through fear. That is not believing that you have the ability to do that. And I related it to the church and exorcisms. Right? When it comes to exorcisms, you see that it's always the church that it has to be done by. A member of the church, a priest comes, whatever, and does the exorcism. Well, why? The reason is because everybody in the church believes that this one person holds more power over spiritual than the congregation. They've given that belief to that person. They've given that power to that person because they believe it. So if you keep that belief within yourself, that you have that power, you actually have more power in this particular situation than any priest could ever have for exorcising something from the physical. It's all part of personal power is your belief and keeping it within. That was this week's podcast episode. So I hope that you will join me in my Facebook Living a Magical Life Facebook group, or come and check out on the website at witchfulways.com and check out the Sister Circle membership. I would love to see you in there as well. Have a wonderfully magical rest of your day.